Greetings all, Fennec here, back with another GPU video. Now today, we will be revisiting ATI's beastly flagship of 2009, and that is the ATI Radeon HD 5970. We'll be seeing how it holds up in 2025 in some modern games and some older titles. Because yes, as a DirectX 11 GPU with last supported drivers dating back to 2016, almost a decade ago, don't expect this GPU to launch any modern titles. Now, on to specifications of this 2009 flagship. Just so we're all aware, this is a dual GPU card. So 2 GPUs, 1 card. Something we've kind of put away with now, but we do have 1,600 cores on each GPU, so 3,200 on both, 80 TMUs and 32 ROPs on each GPU, and lastly, 1 GB of VRAM per GPU, so 2 GB overall, if the game supports dual GPUs. That was 2009's flagship, and now let's head into some games. Enjoy. Coming in strong, we have Counter-Strike 2. Now, I was actually very pleasantly surprised with actual crossfire support. As you can see in the top left, both GPUs are working on this new-ish game. It's a little bit older now, but still, it still feels fairly modern. And overall performance was quite good, with an average FPS in the 50s to 60s. Depending on what map you play over time, there's some easier ones like the office level versus like Anubis. Just some are more demanding than others, but it was still quite impressive to see 2 GPUs working together on a modern game. Overall, the game looks a bit jagged, but it was playable at 720p low settings with FSR set to performance. Not bad. Next up, we have Fortnite. And Fortnite overall sadly could not use the dual GPUs because the game engine itself, Unreal Engine I think, just doesn't support dual GPUs. But overall, with a 3D resolution scale of 70%, low settings, and the performance mode, we see an average FPS of around 120. And that's with the distance scaling set to maximum because I can't shoot anybody when that's low. So overall, very impressive. Managed to get a few kills in. It was a great time overall. Not bad at all. Fortnite I'd say is playable. Next up, some tank gameplay on Warthunder. Now Warthunder used to support dual GPUs, but over time I guess just as the player base of dual GPU setups just went down, they eventually removed it. So as you can see in the top left, no dual GPU usage, but still average FPS in the high 70s at low settings, 720p. It was once again very jagged when it comes to the graphics, but I managed to get a few kills in and it was quite playable. Once again, the capture card might look a bit but it was smooth in the gameplay. It was very smooth. Overall, looks jagged but runs good. Not bad. Now City Skylines was an interesting one. I messed around with the crossfire settings, and this, I think it was 1x1 or something in the crossfire settings. It tried to use a bit of the second GPU, as you can see in the top left, and it was an okay experience overall, with an average FPS of 54 to 53, around there, but yeah, it was a little bit jittery. Had to go down to 720p, lowest settings. Overall, I'd still say it's playable, but it just wasn't the best experience, especially if you zoomed all the way out and looked at your entire horrible city like mine. Yeah, you'd probably go into the 30s or so, so cool that it runs, but not the best experience. Give it a 5 out of 10, maybe 4. Now GTA was a bit of an annoying one because, as you might know, GTA Enhanced came out, and sadly that one supports only DirectX 12. So you're going to have to use Legacy if you want to do this, and I don't have Legacy installed, so this is older footage, but it's still from the 5970. So with this footage, this was it. A mix of medium and high settings, very impressive, and beautiful scaling on the dual GPUs, very playable overall in online mode. So you'll have an even better FPS possibly in story mode. Once again, Legacy mode, very important, not enhanced. Now I tested ROBLOX mainly out of morbid curiosity, just for fun. It's a very simple game overall, depending on the game on ROBLOX you play. Some are more demanding than others. It's a platform, not a game. but this particular Roblox game, and many others like it, averaged around the 70s or so in terms of FPS, sometimes dipping a bit below, sometimes a bit higher. I couldn't exactly get an average, sadly, because the anti-cheat does not allow Afterburner to run, so yeah, you might just have to take a look at the top left and be the judge of what you think the average is. But overall, very fun. I had a good time playing. Arms of Solitaire, this is the particular game, was very smooth overall. Beautiful. Next up we have REPO, and that's actually the newest game that we're testing from 2025. That's right, GPU from 2009, game from 2025. And it runs quite nicely on the lowest settings, although that's not that surprising because the game graphically is not the most advanced, but we see an average FPS of 62 at those low settings, of 1080p as well. It's quite fun. You drag a cart around a building and pick up valuables and whatnot. And yeah, quite impressive stuff from this 2009 GPU. Now, most of the Dirt series games, they've always had beautiful dual GPU support, so it's no question that this particular one, Dirt Rally 2015, also runs beautifully. At actually high settings, 1080p, we get to see the dual GPUs truly show their powers with an average FPS of 94. Now once again, as I mentioned earlier, the capture card might make it look like it's not very smooth, but trust me, it was smooth, and it's quite cool to see this type of FPS. Despite it being an older game from 2015, you have to also keep in mind the GPU itself is from 2009. So overall, pretty impressive. And now, to nobody's shock, Minecraft of course has a beautiful and high FPS, with an average FPS around the 280s or so. Now I did set it to fast mode when it comes to the graphics. You could probably also get away with fabulous or something, but still, I want the most FPS I can get out of it, and it seems to work well. You could throw this into a kid's computer or whatever, and they could play Minecraft all day long. It runs very well, and I did think about testing shaders, but the last time I tested shaders on my old 5970 video, we got like 15 FPS, so unless you find a very, very, very low-end shader, it's probably not worth it. Very good performance overall. And obviously, no dual GPU support as well. Not that it's really needed. Testing Destiny 2 up next, and this one was very demanding on the one GPU because, yes, no dual GPU support again, surprise. At 720p lowest settings, and once again, no afterburner because of an anti-cheat issue, although I did manage to get the FPS at the top right. We have an average FPS of what I would assume to be around the mid-30s or so. You can be the judge of that by looking at the top right. But overall, it was playable. It was just very demanding on that one core. And I remember there being NVIDIA SLI support for a little bit, but I guess all dual GPU support was either removed or maybe it just never supported AMD Crossfire. Still, playable. Kinda. Just looks kind of iffy. Now, I obviously haven't played every dual GPU supported title in the world, but I would like to say, I'd go out on a limb and say Tomb Raider, the series overall, it has the best dual GPU support of any game. I did mention earlier Dirt was also very good, but this I was actually kind of unfair to the GPU, with a mix of basically ultra settings, 1080p. It was a lot for the GPU, but dual GPU support, the utilization was excellent as you see in the top left. And overall we have an average FPS of 46, and you could probably get well over 60 if you dialed it back to high, or maybe medium and high, a mix. It was kind of unfair as I mentioned with ultra settings, but I was very impressed with the FPS average. Very playable overall. And for our last game, we'll be testing Star Trek Online. It's a game that was released around a similar time when this GPU came out, in 2010. Well, the GPU being 2009 and the game being 2010. At low settings, 1080p, actually I think it's a mix of low and high, we see an average FPS of around the upper 40s to the low 50s. Quite playable overall. It'll be a difference between if you're on the ground doing ground combat or in space doing space combat, but still, either way, other than the fact that this game has horrible ground combat in my opinion. The space combat is quite fun and playable. It's just that ground combat's that's more of a game problem than the GPU. But yeah, Star Trek Online being released at a similar time, sadly still doesn't have dual GPU support, which is kinda silly, but on that one GPU, playable indeed. The 5970 overall still surprises me. It's by no means a GPU that you should go out and buy. Maybe if you're a collector you can, but to any other normal person, it's more so just a little showpiece to look at. But that once again being said, it did still surprise me. Stuff like Fortnite and CS2. CS2 was actually crazy how the dual GPU support still worked. And if I bought this thing back in 2009, I probably would have been set for a long time. And maybe if you personally bought one of these back in 2009, or just back then, explain your experience with it. I think it's quite cool to see how long people got usage out of this thing, and for how many years they used it for. Yeah, if you find one of these cheap and you're a collector, you should go for it. Maybe if you want to build a retro rig or something. But that's been the 5970. It's my favorite looking GPU and favorite GPU overall. I don't really know why it's my favorite, because the power compared to modern GPUs like my 6700 XT, it's woefully horrible. But it holds a special place in my heart. This has been Fennec. I hope you've enjoyed and made it this far. I don't normally say to like, but if you enjoyed, give it a like. If you disliked it, that's okay too. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.